All right, check one. Check two. Ooh, that's loud. Ooh, that's nice. Hold on. Woo! What? No. What? Sam Hill? That's a pretty loud. There we go. That's a little more tolerable. All right, I think. Oh, almost pushed the wrong button, and then we'd have been in a big mess. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Good morning. It's Hal Sparks Mornings, Mega Worldwide. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. All the things I forget to say all the time, while everybody else borrows my ideas. I gotta say, I get prouder and prouder of this show. Did you? Oh, is there no audio going to you guys? Boo! I'm sorry. The audio, the theme song wasn't playing. It's all, as Rosanna Dana used to say, it's always something. So, hi, there we go. Whoop, whoop. What's going on? Chat room. I almost pushed the wrong chat button. This one. Hey, I made a chat button and it works. What a nutty notion. I love it when a plan comes apart. You know, lots, no music. Okay. All right. Audio on both. Okay. But everything else. Okay. There was no theme song. Okay. I'll work on it. Let's see. Now let me see if, hold on, my, other audio aspects work. I don't see it in here. Okay. So I'll have to source that in here. That's the, nope. Hold on. I'll put on my, there we go. Let's try this. Let's see if we can do this. And properties. I'm going to fix stuff as we go. I don't care. I'm all good. It would be the camera could go into the 1, I think. Would that be the thing? We don't know at this point. Nope, that's definitely not it. Then it's probably 4. I'm only going to fix stuff I don't have to crawl under my desk to work on. That's the rule during the show anyways. Nope. Okay. Well, I'll work on it later. That's okay. It's fine. We still have some of our sound effects, and we'll be just fine for the morning show. Philip Btner is going to be joining us for the second hour. Hi, Canada. How are you? Thanks. I got this T-shirt in Minneapolis for when I went there for Sexy Liberal, and it's now one of my favorites. It is incredibly comfortable, and it is also Prince. I mean, Prince. I mean, you can't go wrong. Prince is just flat out amazing. Now, I probably should check and make sure that, let's see, that I can hear audio coming from here. That would probably be a good idea too, as crazy things go, just because we are going to have a guest on, and that would be helpful later. Oh, wait, the Major's here. There he is. Hold on, enabling it, and I think the Major can hear me now. Excellent. All right. Oh, that would be loud. Hold on 1 second. I forgot to mute the other thing, and then make sure that this is coming. Hold on, let me mute this. Take this mute off. And Major, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I see that. Now let's see if it's just a headphones thing. We'll keep checking till we got it. I was just waiting to see if we got. Check. Oh, okay, great. And I hear you too. So hold on 1 second. Let me bring you in, and I will put you in the guest spot. Oh gosh, will it work if I go to studio mode? That's the weird part. Okay, so we'll go to. I'm just going to switch over this, guys, so that we don't get into a situation where the graphic gets all wonky. Hold on. And the Major will be here in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Close, and hopefully it will pop in. Hopefully it will work like it's supposed. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. All right, and audio's going out of you. How are you this fine morning, sir?
I'm doing good. I still can't see you though.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that. 1 second. I've got to turn on my virtual webcam. Starting that. Done. I'm always like juggling chainsaws when I try to add stuff in. There we go. Boink. Should be that. There we go. Now both of us are up. There you are, sir. Welcome. Yes, I'll center you. Don't worry. I'll do all that camera work from this end. How are you this fine morning?
Staying busy as always.
Hey, man. I got to say, okay, there are a couple of things I guess we have to address a little bit. although I don't think it's of any real concern over the long term, is Manchin becoming an independent just because of the West Virginia effect of that.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that? I mean,
Well, I know he's not going to run for governor.
yeah,
That was the big fear that a lot of people had. You know, when Manchin, he was a governor for one term, and then as soon as he won his second term, that was when Robert Byrd died, and he just took it upon himself to say, "I'll tell you, I'll just go ahead and take that position in Washington D.C. and leave the we'll let the next guy come in." But I know that he's not running for governor now because Steve Williams is running for governor, and he's the mayor from Ohio, and he's a really, really solid leader. I mean, he's a Democrat, but he has done wonders with Huntington, West Virginia. Huntington, West Virginia was the murder capital of the friggin' world and the overdose capital of the world.
Wow.
During a period, and I'm talking about the National Guard had to patrol the streets, and they had over 24 overdoses within just like one single day.
Good Lord.
It was really, really bad. But Mayor Steve Williams has really turned that place around. I mean, it's just such a wonderful place. Walking through the town of Huntington now, it's really, really nice. And West Virginia needs somebody like Steve Williams. He's a real leader. Of course, Patrick Morrissey is running for the governor, and that's the carpetbagger from New Jersey who is just absolutely the worst. Yeah, the big pharma companies preyed on southern West Virginia and eastern Kentucky more than any other place. And Oklahoma was able to fight big pharma and win like $160 billion over the opioid epidemic.
Yeah.
Because this he was the attorney general for the state. And because his wife was a lobbyist for the pharmaceutical companies, he was able to successfully sue them and get $2 million.
Right.
Let that sink in. The West Virginia should have got far more than Oklahoma and anybody else because it has been proven that we were the lab rats on these jackaloons. And once again, this guy lets them get a free pass. $2 million is like them throwing a nickel at a can.
It's absurd. Well, it's like Trump's, contempt of court citations. How much money he's getting? It's ridiculous. So, I don't actually think it's going to have any more impact than Menendez suddenly running as an independent. Quite frankly, although I will say for the record, they do not compare. It is one thing to be a jerk. It is another thing to be a complete a felon essentially in waiting, which is the difference between him and Menendez. And you know what I mean? There is a distinction, and there's a lot to say in places like West Virginia and other places where, Bernie Sanders runs as an independent. He switched his party affiliation when he was running, I believe, for mayor initially because he was to the right on gun laws of the Democrats in those areas. And so they were, he had to do that. He had to move his position and his party affiliation to get elected. Nothing wrong with it, just a reality, just part of the whole thing. And there's an element to that in places like West Virginia that is increasing as we get this kind of like weird sort of, I guess, the center or center left or even center right at this point, area of what the maggots would absorb the sovereign citizens. The center is sort of absorbing this kind of like anti-Washington independent streak mythology as a story point that you have to get elected in some places. So I wouldn't be surprised that that's largely what it's about.
West Virginia has completely flipped to the red side. Yeah. And I mean by a lot. Donald Trump is literally worshipped in that area. As a matter of fact, I saw a poll yesterday that said that the West Virginia was the second in terms of Trump supporters within the state. It's going to take, I don't think that I'm hoping that Mayor Williams can pull it off. And the reason why I think he may have a chance is that, the Republicans had to rip each other apart in order to win that seat. So hopefully there's a lot of, animosity going amongst the Republican Party. And, hopefully it'll open a small crack in the door for Steve to get through. But at the end of the day, it doesn't surprise me no Democrats win anything. And it was really sad because, when I was a senator, I had a guy, his name was Doug Facemeyer. He was a senator with me. Mm-hmm. And he was absolutely a self-made millionaire, started with, stocking shelves at a grocery store. And now he's got like 15 grocery stores.
Right.
The guy, and he was such an amazing legislator. Behind the scenes, I got to work with these people.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I was so inspired. The same thing happened with my other senator from my 7th district in West Virginia. He was a doctor. And I watched him fight so hard for end-of-life care, for all these things that help the people in West Virginia. And because of Donald Trump, people like this that had did so much for the state of West Virginia literally got beat by 18-year-old kids that start. They literally decided they were going to run for the House in their high school year, and because they were maybe a little more above than the normal knuckle dragger, everybody thought it was cute. And the next thing you know, these people are winning these races. What have they got? What expertise do they have? When you look at Doc Stallings, who was a brilliant legislator, you're talking about a guy who started as a coal miner. And the company thought that he was super intelligent. They paid for him to go to medical school. Mm-hmm. And now he's a doctor that helps people all across southern West Virginia. And what a bank of knowledge that he has. Right. And the same thing with Doug Facemeyer, as a self-made millionaire, a business creator. He creates taxpayers. I mean, these are people that are so important, and they get beat because of why? Because the other guy goes, Trump. I'll do whatever Donald Trump says. Right. And that's all it takes. And we still may be there in West Virginia.
Yeah, it's super fucking sad. My dad has one of his best friends lives in Louisville, Kentucky. He's a dentist. All my life growing up, one of the most ornery men I have ever known in my life, and still has a vendetta that if he had gotten away with killing me as a child, he would have done it because I played jacks at the base of the stairs in his house and then left them there when they called me to dinner, and he came down the stairs in his bathrobe and no shoes on, and everywhere he stepped, he came down on a jack. And that story is told in that house as a warning to other children that they will be buried under the house if any of that happens. Now, that said, more than likely, and I don't know direct knowledge, but I guarantee he's been a Republican his whole life, just from the where he is and what he thinks and the like, and the way my dad used to vote in the 80s and the like. Very, very similar in that regard. That man is a Republican, but he, as a dentist, volunteers 2 months out of the year to go to Eastern Kentucky to do free dental work for people in Appalachia and people in, he goes all the way up to Baltimore, Maryland, places like that. It isn't just like a white Eastern Kentucky thing. He volunteers as a dentist to help impoverished people get dental work they need, which, by the way, like dental disease can lead to like early deaths from heart attacks and all kinds of other shit. Like, there's a lot of important aspects of it that are, that spread to the rest of your life. It isn't just about a good smile, but that's enough too to get a job and all kinds of other shit. So he goes down there and he volunteers to do that. He's that kind of Republican that you're kind of talking about that did that kind of shit, put himself through, dental school, became a dentist, and then volunteers his time. He's that kind of human. And those kind of people, he is not going to vote for Trump. I know that for a fact. Like, I know him as a man, he will not do it. He might not vote, but he isn't going to vote for him. And
I take that as a win. Yeah. I take that as a win. Nothing surprises me. I always like how the Republican Party also looks at Democrats and says that Democrats need to completely cut ties with Joe Biden because of this bullshit and this bullshit, which is unproven anything. Rumors. Right. They'll sit here and say that Democrats should leave Joe Biden for lies, that are absolute verified lies. But yet Donald Trump gets caught actually breaking the law and doing these things that they're not turning their back on him.
Right.
I mean, they expect the Democrats to but once again, I was talking last night.
Or something his son does that is actually
Hunter,
going through. Yeah.
Yeah, Hunter Biden's going to start his court date is here now. He's going to be, and oh, by the way, if he is found guilty, then hold him accountable.
Right.
That's the difference between us and the Republicans. The Republicans say, "Oh, we can't do anything with Donald Trump." I'm telling you, I am hoping, and I really believe this may be happening. The Republicans are in a world of hurt because I think that polling, the Republicans are realizing that Donald Trump and his daughter Laura are literally draining the RNC out of all their funding, and it's not benefiting the Republican Party in the least.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I'm looking at this and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, the Republicans have to be speaking behind closed doors. I know there's a lot of them that are scared that Donald Trump's going to throw stones at him, but at the end of the day, you're about to lose probably bigger than any election we've ever had if you continue going down this path. And Nikki Haley would have been the perfect person to say, all right, guys, Donald Trump polling he's done. Let's go ahead and jump over to Nikki Haley. But because she went and bent the knee and kissed his backside, she loses all credibility.
Well, here's the thing. I think she does with us, but I also think there's this kind of like whisper campaign, and this goes to like, I think you're talking about like what they say to the public and what they say behind the scenes, that there's an aspect of this where they go, all right, she has to do that not to lose the MAGA voters, because if we have to switch fucking wagons in the middle of this shit, she has to come around so that she can scoop those people up, or she'll never fucking win in the fall. If they think because again, this goes to the DeSantis thing, that no matter what fucking happens, whoever voted, like maybe like 80% of DeSantis voters are going to vote for Trump. But the people who jumped to him had already been in that I've had enough wagon. A bunch of those people leapt over to Nikki Haley after he dropped out. There's at least half of her voters, if not fucking all of them, are not going to vote for Donald Trump, right? But if she pops back on, the same thing with DeSantis, the Trump voters are going to go, if he's not the nominee, they did it. They're not going to blame Democrats if they switch between now and the convention or now and the election. They're going to blame the fucking rhino establishment, uniparty, blah, blah, blah that they talk about. And so they're going to, apropos of fucking nothing, they're going to think Nikki shivved him. That's what she worked behind the scenes. And so even though she says she likes him, she's going to, she obviously helped make him not the nominee. But I think to have any hope of getting any of the MAGA voters, maybe what would be effectively the floaty middle of the road ones, are enough to carry her in the election, she has to bend a knee to him, or they're just not going to show. I don't think they're going to show anyways, but they're definitely not going to show unless she kisses his ass.
Well, I mean, you make perfect sense there if that's her, but that's, to me, it's like, you're going to sit here and you're going to literally do what you did. You drug him through the garden, and rightly so. Just like Ted Cruz drug him through the garden. He's a liar. He's a narcissistic. He's a homophobe. He's an Islamophobe.
Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, all of them, yeah.
They all just ran. And I'm sorry, but I have to draw the line there. You don't get to speak about my wife and expect us to ever be friends again. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Totally. To watch these people bow down like they do, to me, that's one of the biggest things is, why would you vote for a person that licks boots like that? And once again, we've got a fighter pilot that is running against Matt Gaetz. We've got another guy that I think is a retired full bird colonel, I think, that's running against Ted Cruz. We've got a one-star general that's running against Marge the Trainwreck Green. Unfortunately, I'm sitting here thinking a one-star general, I mean, who would not want to support a person that literally probably dedicated 35 years of their lives to this country?
And would have died for it.
And would have died for it. But the downside of it is in that district, remember, Marcus Flowers raised $30 million to run against Marge the Trainwreck Green. And he ran in that district. He did everything right. And he lost. And I'm talking about like within 20 minutes of the damn polls closing, it was already called for Marge the Trainwreck Green.
Yeah.
And the reason for that was because those people in Marge's district are not going to vote for a person of color. I don't care if that person of color dedicated their lives to this country. And that's sad. Is right now Marge has a 1-star general running against her.
Yeah.
And she's probably going to be a shoo-in. And it's really sad when you look at it like that.
I agree. I mean, that's ultimately, that was the glass ceiling that Nikki Haley hit. Not only is she a woman, but she's a woman of color. There is no fucking way she gets a plurality of votes in the Republican primary, much less the Republican Party once they go to office. Again, Sarah Palin, at the time, the most popular governor in the country, which is real fucking easy when you hand out government checks to everybody in your state. Like, Alaska's always got the most popular fucking governor because their name is on the check you get, for fuck's sake. You get paid by your governor as if they had anything to do with it. Like, it's just nuts. But she had somewhere in the order of like an 80-90% likability rating in the Republican Party and a 20% electability rating. Meaning 20% of them would vote for her to be president. And since she was running for vice president, and the president, in that case, John McCain, was an older person, the idea was there's a possibility that the younger person will become president. And they were all a flat fucking no on that. And that cost him the election more than almost any other factor. I mean, there was a bunch of shit going on. But the idea that that Republicans will not vote for a woman as president, they will put them in certain positions, largely as gatekeepers. A woman is allowed to say no in politics, but she is not allowed to say yes. That's the thing on the Republican Party. Like, you can put her in the Supreme Court because she'll say no to the bad shit. She'll say no to a woman's right to choose. She'll shut things down. That's what she's there for. She can be in Congress because she can say fucking no to things. She can say too much spending and we got to cut it off. But the minute you have a woman in there who starts saying yes to things, this is a policy that will help people. This will save lives. That's not a woman's place. Women don't know that shit. That's for men to decide. Men will decide what helps and stuff. You could stand there and it's almost like leaving them home to discipline the kids while you're at work. They could say no, but I don't want to hear, don't say yes to shit unless you clear it with me. And that's where they are. They're not going to fucking vote for a woman of any color to be a president of the United States. The Democrats, we don't have that fucking problem at all.
Yeah.
And they'll never get it. They'll never understand. That's why they hate Kamala Harris, because they can't understand the idea that we would put her a heartbeat away from the presidency.
Yeah. I'm at this point now where, I'm like, Donald Trump, now that he is a convicted felon, and I have no doubts that he's going to be found guilty many, many more times on many, many more counts on all the other fake electors, the stolen race in Georgia, January 6th, all this stuff, I believe. The classified documents should put him in prison for the rest of his life.
Right.
But I really do believe that all this stuff is really starting to weigh on him to the point where, like, I think his mind is starting to go south. He can't even speak. Yeah. He can't even say a paragraph without screwing it up. And
oh my God.
I mean, it's getting worse and worse and worse. Even people at the rallies are now starting to say that, things are kind of messed up. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm hoping that I want the Republican Party to cut ties with him, just because I want him to feel what it feels like to be kicked to the friggin' curb.
Well, that's what make him feel like he made people feel his entire fucking life. I mean, first of all, The Apprentice in so many ways was just like an exaggerated Cliff Notes of the kind of shitty person he is. Just hire ineffective, stupid fucking people to do dumb shit on your behalf. And then if they don't show enough fealty to you, or you fire them and just let them go or whatever, or distance yourself from them once they fail at some impossible task you've given them, like sort of like his attorneys in these situations, which he is fucking guilty. He's fucking guilty. Whether he's found guilty or not, we're seeing this. It's in the evidence. Enough of the evidence has been around long enough. You and I both know. We've been watching this shit, and you're like, it's there. Especially the classified document shit. Like, that should...
that's so damning. So damning.
Singularly should drive the Republican Party away from him, and it is mind-boggling, and a lot of them are just looking for a good exit strategy, and I increasingly think that the fealty to him that a lot of them are showing is not fealty to him, but their fear of and fealty to the MAGA base, because they are a bunch of fucking lunatics.
That's it. That is a guaranteed chunk for them. You know, and I hate to say it, West Virginia, the governor, Jim Justice, for the past 8 years has done nothing for that state.
Right.
I mean, literally, he put $1.6 billion on the backs of the working class citizens to fix the roads and never fixed the roads. Yeah. And now that the infrastructure package is good and you see work being done, Jim Justice is trying to take credit for all this stuff. And the Republican Party did nothing for this. But now he's decided that he's going to run for the Senate seat. And, I mean, this is a guy that literally, you know, this is a guy that goes hunting with Don Jr. And every time, you know, Donald Trump comes to West Virginia, he gets the red carpet treatment.
Right.
But the bad part about it is these people in West Virginia are going to vote for this piece of shit. He sweats friggin' butter. The guy is just an absolute lump of shit.
Yeah.
And he's done nothing for the people. He's going to go to Washington, D.C., and everywhere he goes, he has to have a team with him to carry a freaking solid steel chair, because if he sits in anything other than solid steel, it becomes friggin' matchbox. It just matches. The guy, look, I don't throw stones at people because of their weight. But when you're a lazy piece of shit like this guy is, I'm telling you, this guy is garbage. But he's going to win probably because why? Because West Virginia is filled with Trumpaloons, and number two, that's all he says is Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump.
Right.
I mean, we need to keep the Senate. We're going to lose it.
I would argue that any president, any group of any party who says, I will just follow the lead of the president no matter what, I will do exactly what he says, and it should be automatically in a democracy disqualifying, because we have separation of powers, because we have representative government, that if there is a change in the voter sentiment about a particular issue, a president especially should be referential to that. Now, in some cases, they may buck their own party. They may buck the general consensus because they have information the public doesn't have and all that kind of stuff. There's always that factor. But the idea that you would just fucking, stand behind them like some sort of fucking Kim Jong-un lemming line is would normally be a disqualifying aspect from the start, right? From the jump. And because if you have fealty to him, the fear is that he's just like us. He talks just like us. He lives just like us. Well, if he's just like you, then he'll take a fucking knee to the next strong man in front of him. So no wonder he sucks up to fucking Kim Jong-un and Putin and Xi. Yeah. He's just like us. Yeah. And the biggest, scariest dude will just do whatever the fuck they say. Good Lord.
Yeah. Let me tell you, that is a voting block. I mean, I'm telling you right now, and this is I think this hurts the Republicans in the long run, because the Republicans over the last 6 years have forgotten what you have to do to be able to actually run and win a campaign. What they know is that all they got to do is get in front of the microphone and go, Trump! Yeah. And they win. They get the votes. Right. They don't understand what you really have to do to become a candidate and get down to at ground level with the people. They don't know how to do that anymore, because all they know is all you have to do is just look into the camera really good and then scream Trump. Right. And people will automatically vote for you because of that.
Yeah. It's brutal. It's did you ever see the movie Bob Roberts? No. It's a Tim Robbins movie. Watch it, and the parallels between him and kind of Trump, the Bob Roberts character in it. It's a guy running for office, and he's just the most despicable right-wing fucker. Like, he's just gross. Tim Robbins does such a great job because he's just a pathetic, he's like all dog whistles. He's got these weird followers that will do anything for him, and he's increasingly growing this fucked up cadre of cult supporters that scare the living shit out of everybody else who's running, because they're like, these motherfuckers are going to assassinate me. So they all start kowtowing to him, not because of what he's saying is good, not because it has any quality to it, or that he wants to be an actual public servant, because people are increasingly afraid of his followers. It's a great treatise on, and it's very prescient about Trump himself. Now, the other thing is that the guy is a combination of people. He's Trump and Roy Cohn and Steve Bannon and, fucking Rasputin to some degree. Trump on his own is not that fucking smart. Never was. He's a useful idiot for a lot of this shit. And he had the right kind of, anti-immigrant policies and anti-black stuff towards the first black president that would allow people to make, that could be the delivery system. He could be the delivery system for their racist, sexist, and bigoted and xenophobic ideas, right? But it's an excellent take on that. But I think more and more, I really do believe this, and I think it has more to do with like why Nikki Haley did what she did. That they're like, okay, the wall is coming with this motherfucker. But we've got to find a way to get that fucking bag of sand of voters where we've lost the golden idol in Raiders of the Lost Ark. But we got to slip that fucking bag of sand on there to get these assholes to show up and vote. We got to, they've worshipped this golden idol, and now we've got to replace it with to them, what's a bag of sand. We got to trick them, or they won't vote for us. They're just going to go back to not voting and being, just griping. And they are. Increasingly, they already are. That's why Democrats are winning in these special elections everywhere. Yeah. Right?
I have a fear, though, because I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to come after Donald Trump is gone that are going to try to mimic him in a way that helps them pick up some of that voter base. I mean, I am hoping that there's going to be, we're going to round the corner and people are going to start realizing, wow, I can't believe that I really fell for all of that, for the whole Donald Trump thing. Because I'll tell you, I see people trying to mirror Donald Trump's friggin' antics.
Right.
I would, and I hate to say this, but this is where I wish Borat
right.
would come out, put another disguise on, go to a local place in some place like Eastern Kentucky, Southern West Virginia, and show up and act like you're a new candidate running for a local race, and go in there and just absolutely spew the worst hatred and watch people fall for that bullshit. I got people in West Virginia that are screaming about immigration. Ain't nobody from damn Mexico crossing the damn border coming up there since my grandfather did that shit many years ago. Ain't no freaking immigrant. And oh, by the way, y'all act like y'all can't stand immigrants, but all you motherfuckers go straight to the Mexican friggin' restaurant the moment you get off work.
Right.
So shut the fuck up.
Yeah, exactly. And half of them, if they have anything they want done at the house, they don't call the local union of construction workers. They go down, they troll a fucking Home Depot parking lot like they're looking for like labor hookers, right? Yeah. Just fucking picking up for a car date. They just pick them up and just go, I gotta get this porch done, and these guys will do it. And they do a great fucking job, man. They work really fucking hard. Cost me $1,500. Guarantee it. If you sat these assholes down and said, hey, who did your roof? And you're like, I got a couple. I fucking went down there to the fucking Home Depot, man. It's like 9 guys down there. Fucking, they finished it in an afternoon. That fucking thing is tight as a goddamn drum. I guarantee it. They will have nothing but good things to say about how hard those folks worked and how little they worked for.
But they're also the same ones that literally in a crowd of white people will throw stones at people of color. Immigrants aren't coming to America to come to West Virginia. Because why would they? There's nothing there for them.
Right.
If it's not for Mexican restaurants, people in West Virginia wouldn't even care. And that's what bothers me is they're all so damn racist, but they'll sure enough go to the daggone, goddamn mi casitas.
I'm gonna walk all the way from fucking Guatemala with every thing I own that's worth a fuck in 2 bags, and with my kid and my wife. I'm gonna walk all the way to the United States of America and make a beeline to West Virginia. Get the fuck out of here.
like 98% white.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm telling you, the hatred and the bad part about it is
so weird.
Look. I hate to say it, but you can have a college degree and still be blind, lost in the damn sauce.
Sure.
But I mean, you're talking about a group of people that literally have hatred and fear. And most of them, other than meeting me, have never met a real Mexican in their life. It amazes me how that fear and these Republicans know how to stoke that fear.
Sure.
Donald Trump and them screaming, we got to stop this border because they're taking our job and poisoning the blood of America. And these people are just trying to come to this country because they don't want their kids to be preyed on by cartels.
Well, even still, you could argue that in South America that you could go from Venezuela or El Salvador, where by the way, El Salvador has been doing major shit dealing with their gangs and stabilizing that with our help, both secretly and together, no question. Since Biden came in, we've been supporting their gang interdiction efforts through Interpol and all kinds of shit, shutting off basically the money that came out of that country so that it would be easier to catch these guys, because as they get more desperate and more, they group closer together, and then you could do these big scoop ups. That's how they ended up in fucking jail. We and the Europeans have been doing this as drug interdiction and fentanyl interdiction efforts. But you could argue they could leave El Salvador and go to Guatemala or a nearby country, even parts of Brazil, and they'd be kind of safe. But one of the reasons why everybody's coming here is because America's fucking economy is the strongest on earth. And if the strongest economy in the world doesn't have enough workers and it's in walking distance of wherever the fuck you are, and you're in an impoverished country, it makes zero sense that you wouldn't try. That's the reality. Yeah. And again, it's not, if the country, it goes to my, some of our faux aggressive friends who are always claiming that America is permanently systemically racist and it's all racist all the time and you can never pry the racism loose. Nobody walks across two fucking countries with their brown kids to try to go to a country that's systemically racist. And even when Donald Trump was president, they were doing this still, even as racist as he fucking is. America's I always say, one of the most amazing things about America is it doesn't show up on anybody's 23andMe. That's the reality of this fucking place. And they know it. Migrants know it. So that's why a lot of them want to come. And the open borders policy that they always quote back to Hillary Clinton, what she was talking about was there used to be a time when Mexican migrant workers had a day pass where they lived in Mexico, but they could drive across the border, work all day, take the money they made, go back the fuck home. But the big agribusiness, when they started buying up large swaths of these family farms, didn't want to pay. They knew they could pay under the table cheaper than if they had to pay. If people are aware those workers were here, we would insist they would be treated well under U.S. law. Well, that's expensive. So fuck them. So they work with the Republicans for years to lower the standards on this and to push everybody out so that they had to come in under the wire, they had to hide. And then you could pay them under the table and take their fucking passports like they do at Mar-a-Lago. And if they bitch or they say we're being exploited, you fucking turn them over to the feds. The fucking sanctuary city shit started because of that. Because these business owners, construction workers in New York City. You know how fucking New York became a sanctuary city? It's because people like Donald Trump and the fucking mob would use immigrant labor and not let them, they take away their passports when they shipped them up there. They make them work their ass off. They pay them non-union wages all the fucking time. And if they said a fucking thing, they would call the fucking feds on them and have them raid their own job site and just bring in more people next fucking week. Yes, they would do this in Polish labor in Chicago. Same fucking thing.
Yeah, you'll see people come and round up, immigrants, and no problem. But yet you won't see anybody go and round up those people that are preying on those immigrants by hiring those immigrants and then paying them horrible wages.
Oh my fucking God. So you know that movie Sound of Freedom? Everybody's talking about like that Jim Caviezel movie or whatever the fuck, where he's the guy who went down to South America and saved the girl from sex trafficking. It was the right wingers puff this fucking movie up and made it a thing. Okay. The story is he goes down to like fucking South America and rescues this 12-year-old girl who's being sex trafficked down there because of cartels or some shit. Okay, first of all, they're like based on a true story. Okay, you know the girl and the boy in that were in that movie. It was a brother and a sister. Okay, that was not. They weren't caught and sex trafficked across the border by a cabal of sex traffickers in the fucking and sold into slavery in South America and that shit. First of all, it wasn't the girl that was sexually assaulted. She never was. It was the boy. And both of them were pimped out by their mom because the guy that they were renting from basically made them do this to, so that she wouldn't turn her so he wouldn't turn her in. They were going to get kicked out of the country and they would starve or be sent back where they'd all be killed. And so she put up with this shit for a certain amount of time. And then they fled. It lasted about fucking 6 months. And they fled. And then they got asylum from the United States of America to protect them from this motherfucker who was using that as leverage to try and get them kicked out of the country if she didn't let him sexually assault her son, who was an American citizen. So, and I'm gonna say it right now, that dude, there's no fucking way that dude wouldn't have been a Trump voter and isn't a Republican. That motherfucker, no fucking way.
Yeah, I'm so sick and tired of watching these Republicans also claim to be so religious and how they love the Lord and how they live their life. Marge the Trainwreck Green, Lauren Boebert talking about sticking razor wire and alligators on the border. I mean, I'm so sick and tired. Like
Jesus would do, right?
Yeah. It's the thing. I'm so sick and tired of these people that are claiming religion. Let me tell you something. If your religion tells you that you should put friggin' alligators and razor wire on a border, then fuck your religion. Mm-hmm. It's a bunch of fucking bullshit. If that's what Christianity is, go fuck yourselves.
Right.
But it's not.
Right.
It's absolutely sickening. For what you do to the least of my brothers, you do unto me. Right. I've never even read the Bible, but I was raised Catholic, and I know enough to know that the last thing that we should be doing is stealing children from their parents and shoving them in cages just because you're pissed off at the parents for bringing them this way. Kids died in those cages. There were kids when President Biden took over, thank God, they didn't even have the information to find a lot of their families because they didn't give a shit about that.
No.
I mean, Stephen Miller and Donald Trump should be friggin' brought before the fucking Hague and tried for crimes against humanity. That's the kind of shit that needs to happen. I'm so sick and tired of these people claiming they're Christians.
Right.
Because if they are, and that's what Christianity is about, go fuck all you motherfuckers.
Well, that's the thing is they talk about how like Christianity, the number of people going to church, for example, has been declining for 20 years. Yeah. Track that fucking back to the party of like the conservative, whatever, compassionate conservatism of George W. Bush, right? And this idea that he's coming in there and, they're down home kind of Christian-y people. For the longest time, the Republicans ran on this family values idea. And then here comes this coke snorting fucking, National Guard during Vietnam, hanging out, flying sketchy flights into South America during Iran-Contra, curiously enough, coming back with a heavy plane, leaving with a light plane, coming back with a heavy plane, all that shit. And they, at that point, they just, and Dick Cheney as vice president, they're just throwing their hands up like, Christianity. Like, it's a good label, but honestly, that's not what's on the, what's in the tin is not what's on the tin. And in that particular instance, they just realized, and this all boils down to like Mike Pillow's fucking crucifix. Mike Pillow wearing a crucifix in his ads for My Pillow was a marketing scheme to appeal to a certain person out there that goes, he shares my values. He absolutely fucking does not. He started doing that while he was a crack addict. And again, he started that business and then became a crack addict. A lot of people think that like he was on crack and he got his life together and then he started My Pillow. No, he started My Pillow, got rich, and then started snorting every fucking thing. Like he was a fuck around, just like Donald Trump. And his own addicts that he shared an apartment with, where they all did drugs together, did an intervention. Jesus didn't intervene. They all went, dude, if you get busted, we all lose our place to live. You got to get fucking straight so that we can keep using.
Yeah.
And they basically blackmailed him into letting him have you pay for this apartment, we won't tell everybody what you did while you were here. That's it. Fuck off. And so that to me, there's a Jimmy Carter documentary, and I believe it's on Netflix right now. I think so. It might be on Peacock, but I think it's on Netflix. And it's Jimmy Carter, rock and roll president, because the Allman Brothers and Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson were all friends with Jimmy Carter. It's one of the reasons he got elected. People think of him as kind of milquetoast Al Gore light, but in reality, he was our first president who brought. Okay, there was a story in Willie Nelson's autobiography that he smoked weed in the White House when Jimmy Carter let him stay there. That he says this, okay, and he said, I smoked it with one of the staff members at the thing, and he didn't name him because he didn't want to get in trouble. It was actually Carter's son. Jimmy Carter's son smoked weed with Willie Nelson in the fucking White House while he was president. Okay, and it's and Jimmy's sitting there telling this story with a big sweet smile on his face. And Jimmy's a teetotaler, right? He had a glass of wine or a glass of whiskey every so often. He would have he would have one beverage a day. Temperance was his whole thing, but he never did drugs or whatever. But he was it was so sweet watching him tell that fucking story about how, and Willie Nelson talk about what a good man Jimmy Carter was. That's Christianity.
Yeah.
That is fucking Jimmy Carter. When people say Christianity and they talk about the teachings of Christ or the path of Christ or whatever, that's who you talk about. That's the man, Jimmy fucking Carter. Yeah. That dude, married to the same woman his whole fucking life. When he was in the Navy, risked his fucking life to stop a nuclear meltdown. Pissed fucking nuclear. He had radioactive urine for 9 months after that. Jimmy Carter was a good fucking man, and the Republicans cut their teeth on this bullshit, fucking around with a foreign power to help them get elected when Reagan was making deals with the Iranians behind the fucking scenes about the hostages. Same shit. This isn't new to Donald Trump. The Republicans decided, they won Christianity. Carter's the real dude. We'll use it as a label, but we're not going to participate in any of that shit. Carter's a fucking man, and he should have been a two-termer. And watch that documentary, please, everybody. Watch that documentary because, it's heartbreaking that he wasn't a two-termer, but it's also, it makes your heart swell. The decency of this human being. Oh. Yeah,
a life of service,
unbelievable.
Helping always. I mean, and I'll tell you, to be married to Rosalind for so long. I know. Yeah. I keep seeing this where it's he's in his last days.
He's still there.
He's still there.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that he also is kind of at that point where he's just ready to see Rosalind again.
Yep.
Just a wonderful human being. Yeah. That's
the
way people try to emulate him.
Yeah, exactly. And every time, and I gotta say, when Trump talks about him, I'm like, you get his fucking name out of your nasty mouth, you disgusting man. Yeah. Because it's a habitual thing to kick Carter, because we lived in a time, quite frankly, post-Nixon, where even SNL was, it became... There are two things that happened, I think, that comedians especially became habitually aggressive towards kicking the president. And the first one was after Nixon. Post-Nixon, into both Ford and into Carter, there was this idea, before it wore off into Reagan, where it got cute again and not too, the harshness came back and they just made him kind of like almost surface level veneer jokes about him, but never anything that cut, you know what I mean? Like after Nixon, Ford and Carter caught shit from SNL and from political comedians, including fucking Mort Saul and others, that lightened up during Reagan into Bush 1. Then after Bush, that, you know, because of the Iraq War and because of Yellow Cake and all that kind of shit, Obama caught a lot of the kind of habitual shitting on the president that was in vogue under Bush. There was this kind of riding idea that you just, the fucking president, it's all a fucking mess. Everybody's a liar. They're all like, and because Bush and Cheney set that fucking tone. And so Obama had to deal with it for like 3 years of his fucking presidency and never really got free of it. And then 8 years later, like fucking clockwork, Trump comes around, they're almost exhausted from going after the president. And so they just kind of go, I don't know, pussy grabbing, whatever the fuck, who cares, whatever. And they make surface jokes about him again. But until he starts really shitting the bed, they don't go after him for almost 2 years in. This is a cycle. And his was so intense that I think a lot of people are shitting on Biden in the same kind of way, that you just ride through this idea that the presidency in and of itself is bad. Like, no, the man matters. The woman matters. Who the fuck is in there matters. Yeah. And Carter was a good fucking man.
Yeah, I'm hating that, President Biden is still catching so much flack from the younger generation in reference to Israel. But I mean, at the end of the day, he's not in charge of Israel. Mm-hmm. He doesn't get to say what Israel can and cannot do. He's not for women and children being murdered. Right. But you got to also understand that when you're dealing with Hamas, they absolutely have a record of basically surrounding themselves with women and children and then shooting directly at you while they're leaning behind a child. That's their mentality. So, I mean, Well, I would go with that's another example of what I call the stroke of the pen fallacy. That, when Trump got in office, it was clear that while Obama was in office, they would talk about how Obama's a king and he's ruling like a dictator, and he would just shove this stuff down our throats. They use that constant language. He's shoving this stuff down our throats. And it wasn't. Like, the ACA got passed through, bipartisan effort in Congress and the Senate. He had to sign it into law like every fucking other thing. He didn't make an executive order that changed the very structure of our economy or our healthcare system. It passed like any other fucking bill. But the language around it was like he had a dictum and he was sitting there with a fucking scepter in his hand making it happen, right? That was the storyline. So when Trump got in, I think he actually fucking thought that's how shit works. And so when he got in there, he started ordering people around him to do stuff. And they were all like, that's illegal. We can't do that. And he's like, what do you mean? That's how Obama did it. And they were like, no, it wasn't. He passed bills, dumbass. And the same thing is kind of true with what the youth vote that you're talking about here, is that there's this idea that America is an imperial power. We've been talking so much about America as empire, the end of America's empire, and we hear empire. But I got news for you, motherfuckers. Japan doesn't speak English. Neither does Germany. They still got their own language. They still got their own culture, because America's not an imperialist power. Not in the old world way, the way Russia still seeks to be, and way the fucking British were. We aren't. And the illusion that we are creates this idea that that we could, that Israel is just one of our outposts and we can tell them fucking do what we say. And we can't, nor would we want it to be that way. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our country was established because we left that type of mentality. Right. Right. That's the reason why when you go to a lot of countries in places like Africa, they speak, basically the Queen's English. Yeah, they speak fucking French, because the French continued empire into Africa, and the
They lost.
Vietnam.
So a lot of people don't know this, but the one of the reasons why the British lost ground to the French was because they outlawed slavery before the French did. And so the only, like, the British were, like, their interaction with Africa from that point forward was basically stopping slave ships from the Dutch, the Spanish, and the French from passing through. Like, they sent fucking armadas down there to do it. So that's one of the reasons why the language dried up and the culture dried up, and because they weren't engaged in the slave trade anymore. The fucking King of Zanzibar was doing deals with the French and the Spanish from that point forward. So, like, regardless though, everywhere we go, do our industries go there? Absolutely. Are they there at the pleasure of the country that's there? Absolutely. Are they subject to American laws in the SEC? And if they fuck around and we find out about it, do we as a public react and go, the fuck is Coca-Cola doing, in India, for example, when they got in trouble? Do you think there's a single Russian business that gives a rat fuck what any of their companies do in any of the areas they're doing business? You think they'd ever go, hey, they're poisoning the water? But you think they're like, good, are they saving money? Like, it's so fucking nuts. But this idea that we're an imperial power, which we are not, and have never really been, creates this illusion that we can tell Ukraine what to do. We can tell Israel what to do. Now we can help, we can debate, we can predicate our assistance, but we cannot order them to do anything. And the idea that we can, and the only way we could, I guess technically what most people think is in Israel, is to stop supporting the Iron Dome or any of those kind of things, which would not stop the war or stop the fighting in that area any more than anything has over the last 2,000 fucking years. But it would result in a lot more dead Israelis.
Yeah.
That's what it would do. And it would also mean that the Israelis would have to, they could not mitigate their reaction in Gaza. They would have to go with all-out war because, somebody in a panic cannot measure their actions. Somebody who's, behind the eight ball is, has to throw everything at it. It's the old idea that if you put two, whether it's true or not, or, the allegory that if you put two male hawks on a perch together in a closed cage, they will sit. They won't look at each other, but they will sit next to each other peacefully. But if you put two male turtle doves in one, because they both are prey birds and they're not naturally aggressive, they will kill each other because they can't afford to have another male that close. So they will they don't have a way to mitigate. They can't just go, hey, I'm sharp. I got a sharp claw. Fuck off. It's all or nothing. And you put someone in that situation, you back them against the wall. That's what'll end up happening. And everybody knows that. That's one of the reasons why we went with, supporting the Iron Dome as opposed to tanks and airplanes, which they started building on their own. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mark is saying, tell it to the Native Americans. Okay, I'll tell you this. The deals that were made between the Native American tribes and the Americans at the time were the Native American tribes that were still around that had wiped out the other native tribes that were there. People are people. The Iroquois nation fell of its own weight between the 5 tribes that put it together. The big question I would point to people in talking about this stuff, morally, what's the difference between, let's say, the Algonquin Indians crossing Lake Superior and attacking a tribe on the other side, which is outside their field of view? You can't see it from one side. And pilgrims coming from across the ocean. The distance, saltwater versus freshwater, what's the difference?
Yeah,
what's the difference? What's the difference? What'd you do? What were you planning on doing when you got there? In the case of the pilgrims, they didn't know what they were going to do when they got there. In the case of the Algonquins, they knew precisely what they were going to do because the French had told them there was another tribe over there and there was a lot of buffalo. And they were like, well, if we take that, we'll split the beaver pelts with you. And so off they went. Ask the Pawnee, ask the Cheyenne what the Comanche are like, and ask the Comanche what the Cheyenne are like. Humans are humans, okay? And the goal should always be that there is no sacred hunting ground. There are no magic rocks. The whole fucking planet is magic. And we all need to work together with our shared variations of tribal bullshit that we all went through to try and get above water in the modern era, to work together to live here, with our own view of the world. Be a better person. But this idea that somebody like this de-anthropomorphization of Native Americans disgusts me, because everybody treats them like they're fucking antelope. Like all they did was eat grass. They never pooped. They smoked the peace pipe and nothing bad ever happened. Get the fuck out of here. There is no difference between the Cheyenne and the Comanche fighting each other and the Germanic and Polish Roman tribes fighting each other. It's human beings. They're fighting over resources and limited hunting ground. That's what happens. And some people got their ass kicked, and some people got cheated, and some people got killed outright. Okay, here's the best example. I'll end it on this because I know we're going over. Phil's not here yet. Oh, does Phil have the right? Let's see. Andrea, I just want to say, does Phil have the right link? I just want to make sure he has that, because I know we switched it around, so I just want to make sure that's there. I'm going to give it to you again just so he has it, because that might be part of the issue. There is, I want to say it's called, forgive me on my history on this because it's a forgotten country, but there was a country called Dacia, D-A-V-I-A was one of the, or D-A-H-V-I-A, depending on how you, which history book you look into. You've never heard of it. The reason you've never heard of it is because there was about 3 million people that lived in this country. 3 million human beings lived in this country. One of the biggest countries in what is now Eastern Europe. Okay? They're gone. There is no one with genetic Davian ancestry left on Earth. You know why? Because the Romans wiped them out. The Romans killed everybody. They were the Davians decided they're bigger than everybody, so they picked a fight, and then they lost. They decided, who the fuck are these people kind of moving around in the Germanic territories, what we know as the Germanic territories now, and they were like, let's take them out. We're bigger than they are. And they tried, and the Romans went, the fuck you are, and they killed everybody. 3 million people are dead. And you know what Davia, the country, is called today? You know what the name of that territory is? Romania. As in Roman.
Ah, folks, you always learn something on the House Park Show.
Here's the thing. The Davians picked a fight with the Romans. The Romans wiped them the fuck out. Do you think the Romans gave them reservations of Davian land? Do you think the Germans ever intended to do that? Like, we're going to have Polish reservations. Dacia, thank you. D-A-C-I-A? I've seen 3 different pronunciations of it. So, and it doesn't exist anymore. So, yeah, it's the Denisovians are. I think you're thinking of different people. They were like Neanderthals. The point being, I've seen Dacia, Davia, and Dahia. They're gone. Yes, but that's Romania now. The point being is that think of any history. Think of even quote unquote the Ukraine. Senator Phil, haven't heard from back in the day. He's under a black. Oh, okay. Phil's under a blackout. Okay. Well, fingers crossed he'll be able to join us when he can. When he can. So, yeah. Okay. Keep us posted. Phil, we love you if you see this in a bit or whatever. And again, this goes to that point. Do you think the Russians intend to let Ukrainian be spoken?
Yeah. No, not going to happen.
Yeah. Do you think they're going to be Ukrainian reservations left over that land? Hey, we could kick your ass. We could kill all of you. We can. We absolutely have the ability, but we're not going to.
Yeah. They will absolutely purge the world of Ukrainians.
Right. And do you think the Chinese are going to allow Taiwanese identity to continue to exist?
No.
Right?
Nope.
I don't. And again, this goes to the United States as an imperial force. Are there still Japanese people speaking Japanese with Japanese culture in Japan right now? Yes, all of them. Is Germany still by the way, Germany is bigger now than when we showed up because effectively it got divided in half and then we put it back together.
That's one thing. That's one thing that I have to say that I agree with President Bush 1 on.
Right.
After the 100-hour war, Desert Storm was over with, and he chose to not go in and put boots on the ground and commit forces to that kind of stuff. And honestly, I hate that we ended up later on down the road doing that, and we did it because of lies. Fact.
Right. Yeah. Well, and again, this is why it matters who runs the fucking joint. That's why it matters that, that's why Jimmy Carter was such a good man. That's why Joe Biden is such a good president. It's why Obama is such a good president. Because, 90% of the drawdown in Afghanistan and Iraq happened under Obama. Check and see, Philip. I don't see him yet, but I'm watching for him. Just make sure he's got the right linkage for the one I sent him. He might be automatically connecting to the old one. A lot of times he'll go straight down to the old link. So just making sure. There's an echo. Beg your pardon. So, anyways, I love that conversation because despite of everything, I fucking love human beings. And I every time, like when I see Jimmy Carter, I think that's Christianity. When I see somebody in fucking Iowa or fucking Mexico or fucking China or fucking the UK being lowered into a rushing river to get a dog off of a roof because a bunch of people are working to save an animal and they're doing it together, that's humanity to me. Not our basest, worst, he has the right. Okay. All right. Well, I'm looking for him. I don't see him yet. So we'll keep an eye out. It might just be a login issue. Let's see. Yeah. Again,
I hate that we have found ourselves going down this path.
Yeah.
I really do.
Nobody skips it though.
Yeah. But I got family members and I got a question like, why do you think this way? Why do you want to sit here and you want to scream about people coming across the border? What are they doing to you? They're not taking away. They're not taking your job. It's not happening. And once again, if white people picked our oranges, they'd be $100 a friggin' barrel.
Right.
That's a fact. These people are coming here. They're working long hours for low pay. They send 75% of their money home. I'm telling you, I know. I've run into some of these people before, and they literally daggone live in one small little facility, and they work, and they just send all their money home to their families because they want their families to have better. They're not lazy. You're not going to find lazy. Mexicans are not lazy people. They are people that work.
And I will say this, it's a self-selecting group of people that we're even talking about, because we're not even talking about Mexicans, Guatemalans, Hondurans, Brazilians, El Salvadorans. We're talking about the ones who put their fucking shoes on, took everything they had and walked hundreds of miles, took shitty buses through muddy mountain roads to, that are completely in a rainstorm, you're going off a fucking cliff. And those are the ones that are getting here. Those are the ones that are making the fucking trek. So, they are in many ways the best of the best in terms of, just that belief. They are, go-getters is what Water Goddess in the chat room is calling. And it's absolutely true. Making that fucking trek in and of itself is a self-selecting group of people. We are talking about the people who will try the fucking hardest of anybody. Because I got news for you. There are millions upon millions upon millions of people in the same dire straits that these people are, who will never make that effort, for better or worse, because they either can't or won't, or are hoping for a better day, or have resigned themselves to a situation, right? It is just a reality that we are looking at the people who make the leap and get here. Oh, I see Phil coming in. I think he's popping in. Andrea, there he is. I see him. Yeah, we're good. So I want to thank the Major for joining us this morning. Always a great conversation, my brother, with you. Thank you so much. Keep fighting the good fight. And he's getting a call, so it's perfect, I guess.
Brother, I absolutely love. You are absolutely amazing. I learn something every time I come on your show. I appreciate that, and I want you to know that last night we posted a photograph on my live of you and one of my followers that got with you, and you took a picture.
Yes,
they were wearing an OJ Live shirt.
Yes, wearing the OJ Live shirt. So great.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Great. I appreciate that.
I told them that next time they see you to give you a hug because I appreciate you, brother. I really do.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. You stay in the fight. Take it easy, Phil.
Absolutely.
I'll see you guys.
Cheers, Major. Thank you,
man.
Excellent.
Thank you, Major.
All right, and let me grab Phil's link and bring him in. And it'll take me 1 second to pop that in here, if I may. And get in there. There you go. It's always something. There we go. And it should be 3, 2, 1. Bink. It usually takes a second for it to think it through. There he is. Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, there it is.
Our dear friend Philip Btner joining us from Ukraine, and you are. I heard you were on a blackout of some sort.
Yeah, we got another blackout.
Great.
We've been having extended periods of time with no electricity in the city.
Right.
Getting to the point where it's almost half the day with power and half the day without.
Wow.
Worse in other cities, but Kiev has got you lose power for about 2 to 3 hours at a go.
Right.
That's been my experience, and it happens 2 or 3 times a day.
And
so that's where we are.
Is that because of attacks on the infrastructure, or is that because of blackouts because of safety?
The infrastructure is overtaxed. No, the infrastructure is overtaxed.
I see. Gotcha.
And they're having to. There's an app that you can get on your phone, and it will tell you your address and when there are going to be potential blackouts. So, and then sometimes it happens without any warning as well.
Right.
And that's probably because there's a fault in the system. But generally, you can check on your phone, and it'll say there's a good chance we'll be switching it off, or we will be switching it off from here to here.
Yeah.
So, everybody makes accommodations for it.
Yeah.
I mean, the businesses have got their generators going on the street. I've got now I didn't go to the studio to talk to you tonight. Because I kind of figured this was going to happen.
Sure.
Now in the studio, I have large versions of this, but here, at home, I have this.
Yeah, sure.
Basically, a solid state battery.
Yeah.
But it has a mains plug. So like what you would use to charge your phone when you're out and about, and you've got one of these things in the oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Spam.
Sure.
So you're like a large external battery for your phone.
Yeah.
But this actually has a it's got the car battery thing there as well, but then you can also plug in your mains.
Yeah.
So we compensate.
Yeah.
Compensate. It's not going to change a thing.
Right.
The Russians can keep trying to do this, but it's not going to break anybody's spirit. And it's kind of a pisser that your fridge goes off, or your like I've got an electric oven, so you can't cook. You plan on doing laundry in the evening, and this happens, and so you can't do your laundry. It's part of what Ukrainians live through, because you can't make any plans. You can't schedule anything.
Sure.
Everything is always it's a
well,
crapshoot.
it's almost like it's
so.
demoralizing, and that's intentional as well. I have no doubt. I mean, that's why you affect like infrastructure. A lot of times, the attacks on infrastructure are impermanent. You can't. They know they're not going to take it out permanently with a little bit of damage, but that constant stress on the public is part of why they'll attack these things or do this stuff, because you hope that eventually they'll go enough already that people will reach their breaking point. Doesn't seem to be that way when you have like old ladies from that are in the Donbass walking out of there on their own. Like, I'm not going to be carried out. I'm going to hoof it. It's not going to work. It's absolutely not going to work. But it is demoralizing. I mean, it does have an effect on the population here. Right.
And that's unavoidable. You are robbed of your agency. You are robbed of your ability to make any kind of plans for the future, or just your basic needs are suddenly ripped away from you unexpectedly. So of course that's going to have an effect on people's morale.
Right.
But what lies above that more than anything else is fuck the Russians.
Yeah.
Fuck them. Fuck them. Fuck them for doing this to us.
Yeah. Right.
They're not angry at Kiev. They're not angry at Zelensky. Obviously, this is a pluralistic democratic society, so there are people who are angry at Kiev and Zelensky. But the vast majority of people that I interact with recognize this is Moscow's doing. The fault lies with those assholes in the Kremlin. And it's not working. I went out earlier today. I went to the studio while we did have power, because I have a better internet connection there. And I had to upload, lots of gigs from a couple of interviews that I did, remote interviews I did for On the Edge.
Right.
So I went down to the studio. I set them uploading, and then I went next door to have a bite to eat at a little craft beer place that I go to regularly. And I sat there, and we were in the dark because they had lost their power, and all the power that they were using were going to the generators to keep the beer cold.
Right.
And to keep
priorities,
and to keep the food from going off.
Of course.
I mean, the refrigeration is the first thing, even on a domestic home level. Like right now, I can't go cooking right now. One, because my oven isn't working; it's an electric stove. But two, because every Ukrainian or every Kievan is learning this lesson. You don't want to open your fridge.
Yeah.
Because then you're letting the cold out, and you're letting the warm in.
Right.
So food will spoil more quickly. So when we don't have power, you don't just go, like, oh, I'm peckish. I'm a little hungry. I want a snack. I'm going to go to the fridge. This is how it filters down to your everyday existence. This is what it's like being here. So anyhow, I go down. Oh,
I know. I lived through the LA earthquake.
Oh yeah. Sure.
Same kind of situation.
Those of us who have been through natural disasters. Can relate to this as well. It's the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that it's a human being and people are behind it. There's a willful intent.
Right.
That doesn't help things. But the basics of, like, you got to be very careful about your assets. You got to be very careful about what you do or what you plan. That obviously is something, I lived through earthquakes in Northern California, flooding in a couple of places I've lived in. I mean, people can relate to this. But anyhow, to get back to the point of, like, how people are reacting to it. Yeah. I go and I go to have a beer and a burger, and it's dark. The place is dark, and they're all sitting around. And when we got to talking about it, it was like there was no animosity towards the infrastructure of the city. There was no anger towards the mayor.
Displaced anger.
It was literally like, fuck those Russians.
Yeah, right.
And we're not going to let them. I mean, it's obvious what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to let them. Was the reaction, and I think there's probably a similarity with the Blitz, Blitz mindset in London in World War II, where the pubs were always kept open because it was a way for people to kind of get together and
fuck the Germans, right?
Have normalcy, and also to get together and commiserate and all the rest of that. So that's happening here as well. What isn't happening on any large scale level that I can attest to is any of this kind of I can't bear this anymore. Fuck it, let's sue for peace.
Right.
That's
not happening.
I'm sure there might be some people out there thinking that.
Right.
But it is not a widespread.
Who strangely
attitude.
I'm sure the ones that do strangely have a Russian passport in a box somewhere in their bathroom, hidden under some stuff.
Well, I mean, it's a democracy. People are allowed to express their opinion. I know.
Phil's caveats.
There are people there.
Right. Of course there are. It's that story journalism in you that to be fair, and I respect that tremendously. If I may, let's see. This one. Yeah, here we go. Sorry, I got to move you up because you in this, but this is the death toll currently. Let me shrink this down and fit the page in there. But we're looking at 513,000. I mean, it is I remember when you and I were talking about the fucking number just, in the last little bit, this idea, it's going to hit 500,000. It went from fucking 500,000 to 513 so goddamn fast. It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, look at...
And a lot of that is Kharkiv. A lot of that is going to be Kharkiv. Although they have apparently started a couple of other different offenses.
Yeah. Chasiv Yar apparently they were trying this in Chasiv Yar and Yazabia. They were trying to do one of these meat waves, and it was totally repelled. It just it failed. It's stunning to watch. It's like they never fucking learn. There's a report in the Telegraph today. It says whatever the goal of the offensive was, it was definitely not to achieve Russia's highest profile offensive on Kharkiv. A month after it began, can already be considered a complete failure, and not least because of the stupidity of the Russian leadership, writes the Telegraph. According to the author of the article, one can only guess why the Russians launched an offensive in Kharkiv Oblast on May 10th, an attempt to capture Kharkiv, create a buffer zone, or simply distract the armed forces from Donbass. But the quote from the article is, Russia's advance to victory day failed on all counts. Ukraine can thank the resilience of its tired infantry, the foresight of its leaders, the hasty supply of ammunition from the United States, and in equal measure, the sheer stupidity and overconfidence of Russia's leaders. And the fact that they just don't fucking care about their own people. I don't know why I started talking like Robert Culp just. Jeez.
No, they don't.
But
no, they don't. They don't care about the people. What they care about is restoring their greatness, restoring their empire. That is more important to them. And I say them, but when I do, there is a large percentage of the Russian population that is still standing with this war, despite all of the casualties, because they have had it drilled into their head that we're going to be great again. We're going to sound familiar. We're going to, we will restore the greatness of the Russian Empire or the Soviet Union.
Right.
Really, it's the empire. It's not the Soviet Union. Although, without getting into a history lesson, basically the Soviet Union was the empire, just wearing a different, colored suit. Anyhow, they want to restore empire, and they'll spend a lot of life to do it because life is cheap. What is important is the greatness of the state. That is a very widely held belief within that. Culturally, that is one of the reasons why they are able historically to absorb as many casualties as they can, because it's not about the individual.
Right.
It's about the greatness of the state, the greatness of the czar, the greatness of the Kremlin, our place on the global stage.
The greatness of the doors he walks out of that make him look like a miniature human being.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he's a particularly foolish czar, but he's a czar nonetheless.
Yeah.
And they're I mean, they are willing to spend that. This Kharkiv offensive was never going to succeed if the objective was to take the city. They never had enough people to do that. If it was to draw people away from Donbass and Chasiv Yar, Chasiv Yar, then Yasiv Yar, then that didn't really work either. And if the idea was to try and sue for some kind of peace or to grab territory and hold it in anticipation of some kind of deal or whatever before the 61 billion and the F-16s and all these other things that are about to change the face of this war, before those rev up, that is not going to work either. This whole thing was just a bad idea for the Russians.
Yeah,
and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I don't know what's going to happen with Ukrainian forces, but Russian forces are pretty spent. Yeah.
Well, and also go
ahead. Yeah,
that's okay. I'd like to remind everybody that Tsar, as we understand it, is the I want to say the Slavic derivation of the word Caesar. And so the modern spelling of it as Czar, as opposed to, I think it was Tsar originally, which is Tzar, how they used to spell it. The Tsar used to be spelled with a T, now it's spelled with a C, which literally is closer to the whole Caesar kind of thing. Is that this motherfucker, like, if there's any better, fucking parallel to the fucking Russian leadership over the last couple of runs, especially, it's like the handoff from one czar to another, to either some inbred lunatic or some power-hungry psychopath in the tail end of that, when they're all eating off fucking lead plates and losing their minds. And I always found it very funny that they started spelling it with the C, and it just seems like they were getting closer to calling it Caesar at that point. But anyways.
Well, they do this. Well, this plays into a major part of their mindset, is that they have an aspiration to what they declare themselves, and they want to be what they themselves call the Third Rome, with Rome being the first, major civilization, and then the collapse of Rome. Then you go to the Eastern Roman Empire based in Constantinople, now Istanbul. Why they changed it, I can't say. People just liked it better that way. That's the Second Rome.
Right.
And then they aspire to make Moscow the Third Rome. And you'll hear this in their philosophy, in their discussions of self, of who we are as a nation. They aspire to be the Third Rome, and access to a warm water port, especially one that is kind of part of the Mediterranean waterway system, even though it's kind of restricted, is the Black Sea. So Sevastopol is this idyllic aspiration of theirs to be the Third Rome. And that's why I have been saying for quite some time, I've said it on your show, I've said it on other shows that I've been invited onto, and I've including it in our podcast, is that the body count may or may not matter. I think there's going to be a breaking point, or there's a potential for a breaking point, but more than the body count is the loss of prestige. If the Ukrainians can make the people of Russia recognize that despite all the death and destruction and the casualties it's for nothing. Not only are they not going to expand their empire, but their empire is potentially going to contract. Because if the Ukrainians can put Crimea on the table, it will be a more significant blow and shock to the system than all those soldiers who are dead. And that kind of gives you a little bit of an insight into their kind of cynical mentality and the fatalism of their mentality. But I think it is more likely that will be the thing that makes them turn on Vladimir Putin. This law, not only are we not restoring the empire, but we're losing.
Well, there was. I want to say,
namely the Black Sea.
Yeah, I want to say that there was, like Putin said something this week. I'll see if I can look it up real quick. But he basically admitted that Crimea wasn't theirs. Putin warned European leaders of serious consequences before reminding them of their own vulnerability. They should keep in mind that theirs are small and densely populated countries, which is a factor to reckon with before they start talking about striking deep in Russian territory, as we were talking about. And it would be a fatal mistake. This is not an attempt at intimidation or nuclear bluff, he said. Where was it?
Of course not.
Of course
not.
But this idea that
I'm not saber rattling, but look at this big fucking nuclear sword, and I'm going to wave at you.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not waving any sword.
I've always argued that the end result was, and I forget who it was, but there was like one of our scientists snuck the Russians our nuclear, technology, because he said it was unsafe. This was his argument. It was unsafe for the Americans to have be the only people with access to nukes. Okay, first of all, fucko, the fact that you took it to Russia as opposed to yes, that the
Rosenthal case.
Yes, I believe so.
Is that what you're referring to?
I think, I want to say he was the one who was quoted as saying the reason they gave it to him was because he gave it to them was so that there would be a counterbalance. Yeah, the Rosenbergs. There would be a counterbalance to the U.S.
Rosenbergs, yes.
Yeah, the power of it. Okay, so which is it's sort of like I guess, but why would you give it to them in particular is the weird part, I guess, except for it was our mortal enemy, which seems like the worst possible option. I mean, at this point, why didn't you just give it to the Japanese after? Because they were the ones actually hit. Anyways, yes, they were executed. But the idea is that they believed in the concept of MAD, mutual assured destruction. Well, what was the ultimate result of that? Was it that it effectively, because everybody was afraid of an escalation, that we never got to other wars? No. It ultimately created a situation where we as the United States and our allies did not want to engage in adventurous wars. And so we, for the large part, for a very long time, did not. But the Russians used the threat of nuclear war as an umbrella under which they could attack anybody else. Because if we tried to stop them or do anything, they go, you start fucking with us, we're going to fire our nukes. We've got nukes, so you should let us kick George's ass. You got to let us beat up on Chechnya. You got to let us, tacitly invade African fucking countries and enslave people. You got to, you got to let us, partner.
You got to turn a blind eye. You got to turn a blind eye to us rolling tanks into Prague, into Prague in '68.
Right. Exactly.
I mean,
you got a
violation of international law.
Because if you don't let us happen. Yeah, if it's effectively it's like they're the fucking BTK killer. If you try to move while I'm sexually assaulting the members of your family, I'll kill everybody. That was the mutual. That's what mutual assured destruction brought us in an engagement with the Russians. Was an envelope under which they could engage almost the maximum amount of traditional warfare. And would limit our response to it because they always had the threat of nukes they could just let loose. And that's what they're doing right now. Yeah. And even we fell for it again when we removed those from Ukraine. Now, at the time, I think under Clinton, we didn't necessarily trust that the leadership in Ukraine wouldn't be controlled by Russia after the fact. or that they wouldn't be seized and used or still controlled digitally from there through a network that they had set up. So better that they just are pulled off the fucking table entirely. And you can't put an anti-ballistic missile system right next to the nuke itself, because it won't help with those. It'll be fast, be the launch from there. You wouldn't be able to hit it. You'd be pointed in the wrong direction, essentially. So you want to move back a little bit to give yourself some hitting room. But that's what MAD gave us. MAD gave us a tent under which Russia could just do whatever the fuck they wanted. And yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, though, is also, and I've given some serious thought to this, is the fact we don't, despite a lot of kind of our international policy, at the end of the day, we actually don't like being an empire. America is very uncomfortable with the whole idea. It's why we have protests. It's why when we do involve ourselves in international relations in a let's say aggressive way, and I'm couching it because I'm not just talking about wars. The wars, there's also we exert our influence around the globe, and we're very uncomfortable with it. We don't like it because we were born out of empire and we resisted empire.
Sure.
And we're a former colony that overthrew our imperial masters. And the whole tenet of our constitution and our philosophy is at odds with the concept of empire. So despite the fact that we do engage in imperial acts occasionally, more than occasionally, we are involved. We exert our will on the global stage. We do that. 100%, but we're very uncomfortable with empire. However, as a counterpoint, the Russians have no such compunction.
Right.
They don't have a problem with empire at all.
Yeah.
They're like, the more land that we can seize, the more we can spread and grow, the better. I mean, there's a stat out there that I don't have readily to hand, but if you look at the history of Russia from like say the 18th century, when they really started to expand empire, they have consistently every year like acquired territory. If you average it out, they are constantly expanding. They are constantly seeking more territory to seize for a variety of reasons, but they still are very not just comfortable with empire, they pursue empire. And so much of this war is about, knocking them upside the head and going, we've moved on from that shit.
Right.
Catch up. And they're not really listening. And it's all the more reason why we need to support Ukraine, because aside from, all of what I've just said there, is the fact that we should have some affinity for a former colony that is trying to overthrow its imperial master. So we should absolutely be supporting it, but also for Russia, ultimately for Russia's own good, for the global good. They have to stop thinking of themselves as empire. That has to stop. Otherwise, it's just they'll start another war somewhere else. They'll push for expansion as they have done for centuries, and it just will keep going. This has to be the moment where we tell Moscow, maybe you guys should look at yourselves. Yeah. Instead of looking at territories that you want to acquire so that you feel safe. Because, in that scenario, you're never going to feel safe. And that's part of the major problem why this conflict is happening. And, right. And, and I also agree with Professor Snyder at Yale, who says, ultimately at the end of the day, this loss of the concept of empire will be beneficial for the Russians themselves, because maybe they will look internally and say, we're kind of fucked up. We need to make some changes. Right. I'm not holding my breath, but we can hope for that.
Paisley Jane in the chat says, how since 1900, Russia or the Soviet Union has invaded China, Korea, Japan, Mongolia, Austria-Hungary, Germany, Afghanistan, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland, Finland, Romania, and Poland again. Which is, And also, Finland again,
It's
Germany
so-
again, Hungary, Austria, Poland a third time, Romania again, Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, Hungary again.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a. So real quick, there.
You're starting to see a pattern.
Yeah, we're also seeing. Here's the thing too: is that one of the things that we talk about, and I've heard Rachel Maddow's done great work on this about what's called the resource curse, which is certain countries that know that they have oil under their feet. And on one hand, it gets you rich really fast, but because you're not in control of what those riches do internally to the country, it's a natural resource. You're not processing it. You're not the genius that created a way to use it necessarily. It's just under you that you build a lot of money, but there's a lot of corruption that goes with that because all you got to do is dig it up and funnel it out of the country. So everybody does it. Gold, coal, oil, rare earth minerals, which aren't rare necessarily and are all over the fucking earth. But in that process, you get rich really quick, but then it collapses once it goes away, And the same thing is sort of true about the technological advancement of Russia in terms of warfare. In one instance, they were the second largest military in the world because of the vast numbers of people they are willing to spend in a fight, similar to the Chinese. This idea that the Chinese have lots of soldiers, and if they decided to send a bunch of them, they could drop, their army allegedly is, a size of the third of the population of the United States, right? Which, considering how many guns Americans have, wouldn't be enough. But whatever. The idea is that they could drop them in here and we'd be done with in a matter of days because of the size of it, which, again, there's a lot more to it than that, but they talk about it like that. Okay, the similar thing has happened with Russia throwing fucking people into the and so because they have so many people and they don't care, they are able to they not only are they able to just rely on that, but it keeps them from innovating in other areas. Because they only built a navy because they had to deal with water and people don't have gills. They only built a fucking air force in many ways because people don't have wings, because they might have to send people quickly to another place. That's why their jet fighters were good. That's why their bombers were long range, that kind of shit. But it wasn't because they valued the human life of pilots or whatever. It's, so the Ukrainians, on the other hand, smaller population country. It's the first country that Vladimir Putin has attacked that's had more of a population than 4 million people in it, but it's large comparatively. But not that big, not certainly where, and they respect human life. They don't want to just kill their soldiers just to show those Russians. We'll just send a bunch of our fathers and sons and brothers and daughters and mothers to die, right? So the Ukrainians have had to be resilient and resourceful. And one of the things they've done, of course, is the drones. We've been talking a lot about the drone stuff that they've been doing.
Yeah.
Somebody in the chat room brought this up a minute ago, and I just wanted to show you this. But this is, I was going to bring this up with you. This is what's called the Scythe. This is a Ukrainian weapon that they are using in the field. It is, and by the way, welcome to the fucking future, kids, because this is it. The Scythe is a remote control ground drone, effectively, that's this close to being just tracked on AI and sent out on its own. But right now it is hand-driven and there's a person operating it to drive it and another operator that fires it. But it rolls in and wipes out a bunch of Russians. And if it gets blown up, again, it does not get sent home in a flag-draped coffin. It is, it's rigged to blow in case they try to take it.
That can be. It can also be replaced.
Yep.
Ultimately, it's steel and metal and technology and
that's it.
But it can be replaced. There's one of Ukraine's biggest issues they're facing right now is this manpower issue.
Yeah.
It's why you're probably seeing, on your social media feeds, if you're seeing a bunch of these videos of like guys being grabbed off the street in Ukraine. I mean, there is a new mobilization law, and because they have had this long-standing. Yeah, there's a draft. It's a conscription, and I don't like it. I don't like seeing the guys who are and by the way, also they're being pulled off the streets because they're breaking the law of mobilization registration.
Right,
they're not being pulled off the streets and then sent into the army.
Yeah.
They have broken the law. They're criminals, and so they face a consequences of breaking the law. But it's not like the old day of the king's shilling, where it's like, oh, it's the bottom of my pint, and next thing I know, I'm on a boat somewhere in the South China Seas. No, they're being pulled off the street because they've broken the law as far as the mobilization registration law is concerned. And also for every one of those videos that you see that get widespread play, and that's not a coincidence. For every one of those videos, there are literally tens of thousands of Ukrainians who have done their due diligence. They have gone down to the mobilization center. They have signed their names. They are authorized. They've given their phone numbers. They've given their contact information, date of birth, all this kind of stuff, family relations, so that when there is, when they do call up people, all of these things can be figured out. But you don't see videos of that. For a variety of reasons, but you don't see, the videos you see are these really upsetting videos of, guys getting in tussles on the street with Ukrainian police. It is not indicative of Ukrainians' will to fight, although again, a very pluralistic, large population, by European standards. 40 million
I gotta say, over here, none of that is getting a play. Like, that's not what we're seeing. Even on Twitter,
at all?
It's a very minor thing by the Scott Ritters of the world, who, by the way, just had his passport seized as he was trying
pulling off the street.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, he got pulled off a fucking
pulling
plane.
of people off the street. That's not.
No.
Yeah, the pulling of people off the street is not getting.
No.
Well, that's good because it's not indicative of what's happening.
Yeah, I don't.
But if you
I don't
happen
think,
to see those videos,
just
know.
Yeah,
but Ritter's funny, isn't it?
Yeah,
Ritter makes me laugh.
Well, and again, the irony is, for all the shit he pulls and all the crap he talks, the fact is they're probably snatching him up because they found some shit on his hard drive, or they know he was flying to be a sex tourist and have sex with a child, because that's who he is. The man is a convicted pedophile.
He's also useful. He is that, and he's also a useful idiot.
Right.
And the thing that I've been saying about Ritter is, and this is, it's not as simple as this, but I'm gonna take it to a simple level.
Sure.
Open up your passport. Look at the
stamps.
Last page of the passport. It says this is the property of the U.S. State Department.
Yes. Right.
A passport is always owned by the U.S. State Department.
Yeah.
It is given to you as a privilege.
Right.
The State Department says you can be an American citizen, able to travel and go around, go abroad, and all the rest of it. This is us giving you that privilege, not a right. Not necessarily. Yeah. I mean, there are people that argue with me on the kind of certain international law, statutes. But if you look in your passport, it says, and if you look up the law, it's very easy to look up the law.
Right.
The law is that passport belongs to the State Department, not you. It's given to you on loan as a privilege. And Ritter's learned that. He's like, no, you're not gonna go. You're not gonna go to St. Petersburg and shit all over our country,
right? And come back.
Also, by the way, probably right, and then come back and by the way, get up to some nefarious shit while you're there.
Yeah,
whether it is kids or whether it is meeting with Russian intelligence guys who go, this is what we want you to say next week, or we're going to drop this, be prepared for it, or this is the narrative we want you to sell, whatever it is, because he works for them. He is right. He is. I don't think he's a useful idiot. I think he is a fellow
employee.
I think he's actually.
I think this is
he's on board.
This is the first step towards him being tried. There's probably an impaneled grand jury about him being a unregistered foreign agent and all that kind of shit, and that they're going to get him for even money laundering and the kind of shit. Just like the fucking head of Epic Times, the CFO just got busted for for that. That was amazing.
That was beautiful.
Holy
Or the gray zone. The gray
Yes.
zone. Have you heard about that as well?
Yes, I haven't had a chance to read the stories on it, but
the fucking Tehran.
Yeah. Well, that's not,
It's there's a lot of hinky shit going on right now.
Yeah.
man.
Well, it's like
there's a lot of stuff.
Was it Jimmy Dore Jimmy Dore
I'm here
got
for it.
like this Syrian journalism award that they basically paid him $15,000 to lie about the chemical weapons attack on behalf of the Assad regime. Like, Jesus Christ.
What the white hats, yeah.
So anyways,
Aaron Mate, Jackson Hinkle, all these guys who have been running around either doing it because of their own benefit, there's lots of money in that arena there that these guys, the audience that they gather.
Oh yeah. They send
disaffected,
dude. The money laundering aspect of super chats, and by the way, help out the show, everybody. Patreon.com/HalSparks and super chats are always very welcome here, but they will not bend what I actually say or believe.
Shameless, sir.
Well, not at all. But I will say I'm not getting like mystery $500 and $1,000 super chats every couple of days from like Joe in Ohio, totally American guy, bouncing through a fucking PayPal account with an address in Montana that turns out to be a post office box, which is that's the big untold story of this shit. That track has to be followed. We need to start. There needs to be
we're in an information war.
Yeah,
100%. We're in the middle of an information war. We have been for quite some time. Going back, beyond even 2016, which was a major intelligence and information attack on us. Our election there, he gave us he gave us Trump. Yeah, and think of the damage, the very little input and exertion of national resources and will that the Russians had in 2016 for the result that they got. I mean, they chucked the hand grenade that is Donald Trump into our body politic and then just walked away. They didn't have to do anything more. But don't think for a second that they aren't involved in other projects as well. I mean, we are deeply in the middle of an information war. So I'm glad to see. I'm sure that there was, U.S. intelligence assets that were involved in taking down some of these pricks.
Oh yeah,
but I want to see more. I want to see a lot more.
Right. There's been an increasing number of of Russian hackers attacking places, specifically, and. In the United States and elsewhere, they just attacked a Spanish company that was helping Ukraine. They're anybody who's working on getting money to the Ukrainians or supporting them in any way, or any of the banks that they have loan guarantees through the IMF or the World Bank or the United States or any of that, right? And so that I mean, you can read it as that's par for the course, but there's an increasing level of desperation to it. And it's getting to North Korean levels. And my thing is that the failed Russian state for a while just becomes a hacker and ransomware paradise. Not that it isn't already, but they outsource it to fucking Macedonia. Thank you. Thanks for the Chud donation, Balt Thanos. Appreciate that. There is. Thanks, man. Yeah, I found my first picture of her ever the other day ago because I was looking through all my we were making little videos of her and stuff like that, and she was so young. Even though she wasn't, she was a full-grown cat when I found her. But by comparison,
but she was adorable.
Yeah, she was. Yep. But yeah, so I got a super chat of 500 rubles. We'll get Halamoga.
Well, just to kind of circle back. Well, is that you're right. I mean, they're limited. Russia is limiting themselves in what they can produce and what they can provide outside of their own borders.
Right.
Their only thing that they do is, well, the primary thing they do is just rip shit out of the ground and sell it on the open market.
Mm-hmm.
In Ukraine, their economy, I mean, the biggest thing that they have is, yes, it's a natural resource, but it's growing vegetation. It's growing food. You have to grow things. You have to actually, there's a sense of like when to plant the seed, when to grow, when to reap, all this kind of stuff. That's not just there's shit under the ground. I'm going to rip it out of the ground. I'm going to sell it.
Right.
Which is really what.
Well, that's what I was talking about. The resource curse. Right. That's what we're talking about. It's a very
different mentality.
Right.
And you talk about, and then you talk about also, this country is multi-ethnic as a result of empires having passed through here and played a chess game with this territory.
Right.
And they've had to work together. They have become they have become multicultural through a result of outside influences, and they've had to learn how to live together. Russia, by contrast, has become an empire by constant expansion and dominance. So they conquer, and they don't have to live together like the Ukrainians do. They conquer, cultures and peoples as they spread out. It's a very different mentality.
It's also why they're such obvious bedfellows with the Iranian regime, which, as an Islamist Arab force rolled in there, wiped out the Persians and anybody else who was remnant in what would be, traditionally Iranian people, just, wiping them out, and then moving that over, trying to, through Yemen and through Syria and other countries, try to, lay out control and an ethnic base in all of those areas. And that's ultimately where they couldn't do it with the West Bank effectively, so they're trying to do it through Gaza. They've been doing it for decades. The PLO's initial, job was as a satellite empire force for the Russians, in league with the Iranians, who are like, we'll give you that down there. You just provide us with the stuff, right? That's what that back and forth was about. Like, I love how people talk about a lot of these fights as if they just kind of appeared out of nowhere, and there was an automatic, as opposed to a manipulated situation, an automatic bad guy who just kind of came in there instead of an exploiter of an already hostile situation. And the Iranians think the same way. The Iranian regime, I will say, not the Iranian people, who again are more ethnically Persian and mixed in, whatever. Those folks, their history, and we could talk forever about that. But the Iranian regime, the Islamists that came in there who were controlling the place and have for a long time, have the same mentality about the Middle East that the Russians have about Eastern Europe and the rest of Europe, for that matter. Right? That they believe in it's ours. It's just we don't own it yet.
Take it. Yeah. And we're bigger. We're bigger, and so if we can take that, we will.
Yep.
And that's what we're pushing back against. You can have your criticisms of the West and its history of empire. But, I saw Lavrov recently. He's down in Burkina Faso, one of the only places he can travel to.
Right.
If you saw the vlog with the Ukrainian diplomat that I did on the Edge, we talked about that for a while. The fact that Lavrov has been so relegated to these little, he goes to Burkina Faso and he talks about, empire to a very receptive audience. If you're an African, you've got good reason to be upset about empire and European empire in particular.
Yep.
But he goes down there with the audacity of sitting there and going like, we're Russian, we oppose empire, and we hated European empire, and we stand with our African brothers. And you're like, you're lying. You're conducting. You're in the middle of an imperial war in Ukraine right now. You don't give a shit about empire or colonies, unless
except
it's
to have one. Yeah.
Expanding your empire.
Oh, Jesus Christ. And the idea that they have a relationship with China, in that China is trying to do the exact same thing to African resources at the same time. Like, like Trump, or like pretending that these guys like Xi and Putin are at the top of their game and they're doing all this stuff, when in reality they are screwing the third world in an attempt to scrap together enough shit to just keep their stuff afloat, much less like succeeding. It's ridiculous. And China, like I think Biden calls the Belt and Road Initiative the debt and rope initiative, which is just like, he's not wrong, but there's these weird tacit divide up agreements between Russia and China right now that are really iffy. And you could argue that the fight in Sudan, which is still going on, is partly due to the fact that China's trying to get the resources out of Sudan and Russia's trying to get the gold out. And that they basically split up the country amongst themselves and started feeding one side of the military or the other because of the areas in which they want to pilfer. It's fucking gross. Yep. And the idea that it's not a normal conversation because so much of our shit is still made in, the cheaper crap is made in China until the extraction happens, which is increasingly happening. I mean, you can listen to the rhetoric that Biden's using. Like he's not even got a foot out the door. He's fucking gone. Like Europeans, same way. Yeah. Germany's like, I think I would say Germany and Italy are like the last hangers on, and Hungary's going to try and milk it for a while and get a bunch of cheap free shit for a while. But it's not helping. It's not going to move. We're done. And
it's all. Eventually, it is also going to become undeniably apparent that in that relationship, Russia is the
subservient one. Is the submissive,
is the subservient lesser partner in that relationship.
Is the gimp in the
Russians
box?
Aren't going to like that very much,
right?
Yeah, they really are. I mean, Putin's visit to Beijing was just embarrassing. Mm-hmm. And they are their economy. Everybody talks about, despite all the sanctions and everything. No, they have propped it up about as far as they can possibly prop it up. Gazprom is operating in the red. Their market share value. I saw somebody do a vlog recently about how Russia's market share is less than Nvidia.
Yeah. I mean, that says a lot for NVIDIA, too, because holy shit.
Yeah, sure it does. But still, nevertheless, great, big, mighty Russia. And it's like, no, man, you're
one company that makes gamer graphics cards. Right.
Yeah. You're living, you have self-inflated your economy about as far as it will go. And when it collapses, which... is not a guaranteed thing, but is more likely than not. Right, it's going to be catastrophic. This is it's all leading to one place, and that is Russia. Putin has taken Russia into a place where they're really screwed. They're really, really screwed.
This is
there it is.
Yeah, this is the article. This is the pipeline to that Russia was going to do to China across fucking Siberia.
And the Chinese said, I don't think so.
Why?
I don't think so.
Because we're not going to...
Not so much.
We're going to finance keeping this thing afloat when really what you're trying to do is get it all the way down here and out to sea so you can circumvent sanctions or split it off and go through North Korea and make a side deal because we'll help you build it all the way out this far, and then you'll pay for the little side vent off of it that you'll run through North Korea, pay them a small stipend, and then, gets it out to sea so they can sell it around sanctions in the future. Not going to fucking happen. It's just so stupid. And again, Gazprom is where Carter Page worked for a little while.
Yeah, there you go. It's also an engineering feat that they can't do.
Yeah.
10 months out of the year, there are huge sections of Siberia where you can't. 8 to 10 months of the year, it's damn uninhabitable, and it certainly isn't traversable.
Right.
So, the Chinese, he went with his little hat in hand, and he went, please, sir, can I have some more? Will you sign up with my pipeline, please? And China went, yeah, pound sand.
Right. Like this is a picture of an underwater gas leak from Nord Stream 2 in 2022. But this is a story about mystery fires a key Russian gas pipeline, underscore the humblings of Russia's Gazprom cash cow Putin era. This is just recently. If the stakes in Ukraine's attacks on refineries can be measured in millions of dollars, the pipeline war stakes are billions of dollars and the future of Russia's economy. Now, the shutting down of this one that's what they're talking about. The billions of dollars, because they don't trust they can even keep it running, because they can't even keep the fucking ones. Overlooked by the world press, 2 fires broke out last week at the Russian end of the $13 billion TurkStream pipeline. The powerful Ruska compressors pump Rush gas 578 miles across the Black Sea to Turkey and onto Central Europe. That's not surprising. And notice nobody talked about it. The fucking Nord Stream, because it goes to Germany, was getting a lot of like, oh my God, it's World War III. The U.S. blew up, listen to Seymour Hersh. The U.S., the National Guard floated out there in a couple of dinghies, and they blew up the Nord Stream 2, and therefore it's going to trigger World War III. They're going to nuke us, the nuclear war. They're playing with nuclear war, the biggest act of terrorism in the blah, blah, even though it was already shut down at the time, and all it was the Russians vented it to get the gas out like a bunch of assholes. But nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about the TurkStream pipeline, because nobody gives a fuck about Turkey, and they also don't care about the gas going out that's going to China, because if they defend that, then you can tell what side they're on. So they'd rather go they're trying to destroy Germany and hoping that some maggots go, not Germany. Not again! Fucking idiots.
And
yeah.
It's their economy. It's not
toast.
It's not going to get any better.
It's fucking toast.
They're fucked.
Yeah,
they're fucked. The whole Nord Stream thing. Why hasn't Gazprom, for all the complaints about, Nord Stream, why hasn't Gazprom released its data?
Right.
Because when they were building the damn thing, they said, it'll be the most monitored pipeline, so that they could assuage the fears of the Scandinavians and the Baltic states. They promised it would be the most monitored pipeline in the world.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Either you were lying then and you never installed that, monitoring systems.
That's right.
Or you have the monitoring systems and you don't like the result that it gave, so you're keeping it quiet. I mean, that's the only two alternative really that I can see. So, it's the Russians are going to lose this war. It's going to happen.
Here's
the other thing I wanted to quickly mention, when you talk about like, oh my God, Third World War, have you seen all the hair on fire that like, oh, they can shoot now into Russian territory?
Yes, that was one of the other things I wanted to bring up. Because we're definitely over, but that's all right.
And everybody's like, no. Yeah, we are a little.
We've been doing it. We've been doing it. It's same shit. We've been doing it the whole time, and they were basically saying we've already been doing it. Was the story effectively? And that will be something we'll talk about more on Saturday, if you will,
we'll talk about it on Saturday,
because that's a much bigger story.
It'll still be going on.
Yes, exactly. Along with,
actually, it's going to get bigger. I think.
I agree.
It's going to get bigger. We're going to see.
Yes.
We're going to see. When the F-16s are actually flying.
Yeah, they're a major offensive going forward already. So I want to, by the way, hit the like, everybody. Thanks for watching. It's the House Sparks Morning Show. Phil is here with me every Wednesday. We get a Ukraine update midweek and on the Saturday radio show, because I refuse to let this story slide, and so does he. And check out On the Edge, his new podcast around this, and we will.
Got a good one. We got a good one coming up on Sunday. We'll talk about it on Saturday. I'll let you know who it is. But it's a really good, solid interview, and we'll release it on Sunday. And just the whole point is just to try and keep this in people's consciousness, and also provide a greater depth of knowledge about what's happening here, because You can't just skirt on the surface of this story.
Right. So famously, Russia and Saudi Arabia got together at one point to try and lower oil prices so much that there wouldn't be enough money for natural gas exploration in the United States. They tried to kill the fracking industry in the crib under Obama. And then when Trump came back in, there was a similar effect where Trump was trying, he was trying this drill baby drill shit. So to keep U.S. oil companies from being able to expand into the leases they already had. Again, they have 9,000 unused leases in the United States under Biden that they're not using. So the idea that that you can make them drill is fucking dumb. But anyways, the Russians and the Saudis and OPEC, as the leaders of OPEC Plus, effectively got together and said, we're going to raise the oil price under Biden by lowering how much output we have. Because that'll help raise the price enough for Russia to hit a break-even price, and the Saudis are cash poor too. They need as high a price for it as they possibly can because this is their last fucking hurrah. They don't have nearly as much oil as they say they do, but apparently 2 years was their limit because the cuts that they have made, they have said they are, regardless by hook or by crook, they're going to phase out starting this fall. Oddly enough, right before the election. And so that the effects of it wouldn't be felt until after the election. So they're like, we'll phase them out starting in October, but so the cheaper oil, Trump could come into office in January and go, look, oil prices are cheaper just because I'm here, right? That's the idea. But it doesn't matter because they would have kept them going as long as they could, but they couldn't do it. And here you have already oil prices are going down because it's based on futures and how much you're going to buy, because nothing can stop the fact that the U.S. is the biggest oil producer on earth right now. And they thought they could stop it by doing this, by raising the price and transitioning, and they can't. The U.S. Oil production has a new job. It is no longer to supply oil primarily to the U.S. because we use as much as we do, and we certainly do use a lot. It is to choke out the oil producers in the rest of the world, namely Saudi Arabia, Russia, and some of the other countries, to get rid of this thing once and for all, to go through hell and keep going with oil. And the voluntary cuts are being phased out. They've agreed to they're going to prolong the group-wide output cuts to the end of 2025, which is what, by the way, that's how long they were going to last. They initially put them in. They were going to stay in until 2025. Now they're going to start phasing them out in October because they can't take it anymore. Saudi, Russia, and others will also extend voluntary curbs through September. Again, they're starting even earlier than the overall OPEC nations. UAE wins higher oil production quota for next year because they've been pushing for it. They have nothing to gain from the Russian-Saudi gamesmanship in this shit. They sell by volume, not by manipulation of the market. The Saudis and the Russians, their entire profit matrix is based on how close they are to the shipping lanes and the ability to put this oil in the fucking water as quick as possible, and Russia's pipelines, so they can manipulate the market. That's what they built. Traders and analysts widely expected the extension of the group's curbs, and yet, no. They are they're phasing them out already because they can't do it. They tapped out.
No.
They were reading the policy of the Biden administration. Yeah, they were reading the Biden policy completely backwards. They were believing Trump's rhetoric, and they ate shit. Hooray. So thanks so much, Phil. We will see you on Saturday. Thank you, brother.
All right, buddy.
Stay warm, stay dry, and stay
then.
lit. And we'll see you soon.
Okay, we'll talk to you on Saturday. Thanks, Al.
Okay.
And condolences once again. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. Okay, cheers. There he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, Philip Btner. Thanks. I went a little bit over today. I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me because we got off to a bumpy start in the beginning, trying to get the major in here. But so far, so good. So wild, so crazy, so nutty. Why is move myself up? There we go. And stretch myself out. There we go. So anyways, I will see you guys later this afternoon. I should certainly hope. And take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. Hit that like, share the show. We're because of CSL's current situation, we don't have clips like we did before, so it is lowered our new subscriptions because people subscribe to the channels with short videos, not the long streams. So if you could help us out, that helps. Sharing clips of the show is one of the ways you can do it. Mark Kremer has started grabbing some clips, and I'm going to try and convert some of those into shorts as well, if we can, just like little ones, little teeny snippets. But if you can do that, you're welcome to. If you find a part of the show that you find particularly helpful, share those clips out, and that will help immensely. And if other people do it, re-shit those on Shitter, or post them on Truth Sinkhole if you have an account there, or on Threads or any of that. So appreciate you, much love, and I will see you guys later on. Oh, I don't even have a button to end the show. That's so sad. I guess we're gonna have to stay on forever because that's what. I was kidding. That was a joke. Hit that like, folks. We'll see you later. Subscribe! Fixed it. I think I did fix it, right? You can hear it now. Can you hear it now? Can you hear it now? Can you hear it now? Can you? Okay. Thanks. Love you guys.